I used to think my beauty was my greatest weapon, that as long as I could turn heads, I was winning. But that night, the night I died, I learned how quickly beauty fades when your soul is lost. I remember standing over my own body, watching nurses trying to bring me back. But as I looked down, something else was happening. The light around me began to disappear. The air grew colder, thicker, like invisible hands pulling me away. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Then I heard the screams, and deep inside I knew I wasn't asleep. I was somewhere else, somewhere I was never supposed to be. I saw hell, and it wasn't a story. It was real. I wasn't always this broken. I grew up in a small town where people whispered about dreams they were too afraid to chase. I wanted to be different, to be seen, to be loved, to be somebody. When I turned 18, I left home with a small bag and a big dream. I told my mother I'd find a better life. She held my hand and said, "Don't lose yourself out there, Clara." I smiled, but deep down, I didn't even know who myself really was. At first, the city looked like heaven, tall buildings, flashing lights, and people who looked like they had it all together. But beneath the surface, it was a world that fed on your weaknesses, and I had plenty. I got a job as a waitress in a nightclub, just for a few weeks, I told myself, but a few weeks turned into years. I learned how to smile when I wanted to cry, how to laugh when my heart was empty, and how to dress like I owned the world when I was dying inside. One night, one of the girls didn't show up. The manager looked at me and said, "You've got the body." The face. Why waste it serving drinks? I hesitated, but the money he offered was more than I'd seen in months. And that was the night I took my first step onto the stage. I still remember the lights hitting my skin, the crowd cheering, and that strange rush, the feeling of power. It felt good. Too good. Every applause, every compliment, every dollar slipped into my hand made me feel wanted. But when the lights went off, I felt hollow again. I told myself it was just a job, but soon the job became my identity. I was no longer Clara. I was whoever the world wanted me to be. The music drowned out the silence in my soul, and the perfume masked the smell of guilt I carried home every night. People called me beautiful, confident, untouchable. But no one saw the girl who cried in the bathroom after every show. No one knew how many times I stared at the mirror and whispered, "God, if you still see me, please don't give up on me." I wanted to quit so many times, but every time I tried, something pulled me back. It wasn't just the money anymore. It was the addiction to attention, to being desired. Then came the loneliness, the kind that no amount of noise could fill. The kind that follows you even when you're surrounded by people. I started drinking more, smiling less, pretending better. One night, a man I barely knew looked at me and said, "You'll never escape this life. You belong here." Those words hit me harder than any insult ever could, because a part of me believed him. But deep inside, I knew that wasn't true. There was still a flicker of something my mother's prayers had planted years ago. I just didn't know that soon. I'd find out what happens when that flicker nearly goes out forever. The night everything changed, started like any other night, but it ended in a place I never thought I'd see. That night didn't feel special. It was just another Friday, another crowd, another show. But something about the air felt heavier, like the atmosphere itself was warning me. I remember staring at my reflection in the mirror and not recognizing the woman looking back. Her eyes were painted, her lips bright, her smile rehearsed, but there was no light behind them. I tried to shake it off. The show must go on, right? That's what I always told myself. I pushed through the curtains, smiled at the crowd, and let the music drown my thoughts. People cheered, lights flashed, and for a few minutes, I felt powerful again. But halfway through, the room began to spin. It was as if my heart forgot how to beat. The lights blurred, my knees weakened, and before I knew it, everything went black. Someone yelled, "Call 911!" I could hear the panic, but it sounded distant, like it was happening miles away. Then suddenly, I was above it all. I saw myself lying there, pale, lifeless, motionless. the manager shouting, the paramedics rushing in, and yet I felt no pain, just confusion and a strange pull, like gravity in reverse. I called out, "Can anyone hear me?" But no one answered. They were right beside me, yet I was invisible. Then something changed. The color drained from everything. The lights dimmed, the sounds distorted, like the whole world was fading out. And that's when I felt it. The wind. It wasn't like any wind I'd ever felt before, cold, but alive. It wrapped around me, pulling me toward a darkness that seemed endless. I tried to resist, but the harder I fought, the stronger it became. And then, the screams started. They didn't come from one place, they came from everywhere. Thousands of voices crying, pleading, begging for mercy. I covered my ears, but I could still hear them inside my head. I tried to pray. "God, please help me," I whispered. But the darkness answered back, "You don't belong to him." Those words pierced me. Every wrong choice, every compromise, every night I said, "I don't care." It all came back in a flood of memory. I realized then, this wasn't a dream. I was being pulled into a place where mercy didn't exist. The darkness thickened, pressing against my skin like smoke turned solid. And then I saw it. A faint glow far ahead, like fire burning under the ground. At first I thought it was the way out, but as I got closer, the air grew hotter, heavier, suffocating. The screams became clearer, human voices, tortured and hopeless. The smell of sulfur and decay filled the air. I stumbled forward, and that's when I saw them. Souls, countless souls crying out in pain, each one trapped in their own memory, reliving the choices that brought them there. I saw people who had chased fame, power, pleasure, and now their own desires were consuming them. And then I saw her, a woman I used to work with. She looked up at me with eyes full of agony and said, "Clara, you came too?" I froze. I couldn't speak. Before I could move, something huge moved behind her, a shadow so dark it swallowed the light around it. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its hatred. The ground trembled when it spoke. It said, "You inspired many to fall. This is where you belong." I screamed, "No, please, I didn't know." But it laughed, a sound so evil it made the fire flicker. It reached out toward me, and I felt my skin burn though it hadn't touched me yet. I turned and ran, but there was nowhere to go. Every direction led to the same torment, a place where time didn't exist, where regret was endless. I fell to my knees and cried, "God, if you can hear me, please don't let this be the end." For the first time in years, my heart meant those words. And then, everything stopped. The fire dimmed, the screams faded. A silence fell so complete it hurt my ears. Then, from above, a faint light appeared, soft, pure, and unlike anything around me. A voice, calm and full of authority, said, "You are not meant to be here." I looked up and saw a hand reaching toward me, not human, but radiant. It wasn't just light, it was love. Every pain, every lie, every scar I carried began to lift. I felt lighter, cleaner, free. The darkness screamed in protest, but the light grew stronger until it consumed everything around me. And in that blinding flash, I gasped and opened my eyes. I was alive. The doctors said I had no heartbeat for several minutes, yet somehow I returned. But I knew the truth. I didn't somehow return. I was brought back. And I also knew I could never go back to the life I once lived. God, thank you for one more chance. But that was only the beginning of my redemption. When the light faded for a moment, I realized I hadn't fully left the place yet. It was as if I was being shown why I'd been brought there, why the life I lived led to this. The ground beneath me wasn't solid. It moved like molten rock, glowing red and black. Every sound echoed, not just screams but sobs, wails, and the sound of regret. The air itself carried sorrow. Each breath felt heavy, like inhaling grief. I saw shadows moving through the fire, figures twisted in pain, but still aware. They weren't just suffering, they were remembering. Every wrong choice, every selfish moment played before their eyes on invisible screens that never stopped. And no matter how they screamed, the scenes never ended. One woman nearby cried out, "It wasn't supposed to last forever." Another shouted, "I thought I could change before I died." Their voices blended into one endless cry that filled the air. Then I noticed something that broke me completely. Many of the souls looked just like the people I used to party with, laugh with, and pretend to be happy around. I saw familiar faces, and their eyes met mine. There was no hatred, only despair. One whispered, "Warn them. Please tell them it's real." I turned and saw a vast space, like an endless stage made of glowing coal. On it, people danced without music, their movements driven by unseen chains. Their faces were twisted, their tears evaporating before they hit the ground. Each step they took seemed to echo the life they once lived, chasing applause that now brought only pain. And in that moment, I understood something. Hell isn't just fire, it's a mirror. It shows you the truth you refused to see while you were alive. I heard whispers behind me, voices mocking me with the same words I once said. "It's my life. No one can judge me. I'm just having fun." Each phrase felt like a blade cutting through my spirit. Then, through the chaos, I sensed a presence, not like the dark figures, but something ancient, cold, and aware of my fear. It didn't have a face, but its shadow stretched farther than I could see. It said in a deep, thunderous voice, "You used your gift to lead others away from him. You traded light for applause." Tears ran down my face. I fell to the ground and whispered, "I didn't know." The voice thundered again, "You knew. Every moment your heart whispered stop, you silenced it." I covered my ears, crying, "Please, I'm sorry." And for a second, just a second, the fire around me paused. A whisper, soft and calm, broke through the noise. "She is mine." Everything froze. The shadow hissed, retreating into the dark. The ground began to tremble, not in destruction, but release. The fire grew brighter, transforming into golden light that wrapped around me like a shield. I fell backward into that light, and the last thing I heard from the darkness was a scream of anger fading into silence. Hell showed me what my choices created, but heaven's mercy showed me what love could erase. When I woke up, I couldn't stop crying, not because I was afraid anymore, but because I finally understood what I'd been saved from. I thought it was over. I thought that was my end. But in that endless darkness, something began to shine. Small at first, like the flicker of a candle. Then it grew stronger, warmer. The light wasn't like anything I'd ever seen before. It wasn't harsh or blinding. It felt alive, like it was breathing with me. Every inch it touched brought peace. The flames retreated, the fear disappeared, and for the first time since I died, I could breathe again. I heard a voice, calm, gentle, but filled with power. It said, "You are not meant to be here." I looked up, and though I couldn't see his face, I knew who it was. It was the same presence I had ignored for years, the one who had been calling me when I was lost. His light surrounded me, and I felt everything inside me break, every wall, every mask, every secret shame. All I could do was cry. I whispered, "Why me, Lord? I don't deserve to go back." And the voice replied, "Because mercy is not deserved, it's given." The darkness below began to fade completely, and I felt myself being lifted higher and higher. The cold vanished, replaced by warmth that felt like love itself. Then, a loud, steady sound. Beep, beep, beep. My eyes opened. Bright lights, white walls, voices shouting, "She's back! She's breathing!" I gasped for air, sobbing uncontrollably. In that hospital bed, I realized I had been given something priceless. Another chance. Not to live the same life again, but to live differently. He found me, even in hell. When I left that hospital, everything looked different. The sky, the air, even my own reflection. I used to live for attention, for validation, for the noise of people cheering my name. But now, silence felt holy. I didn't want fame anymore. I wanted forgiveness. I wanted peace. The first thing I did when I got home was kneel by my bed and cry, not out of fear, but gratitude. I remembered the faces I saw in that place, the voices begging to be heard, and I whispered, "Lord, if you brought me back, then use me." That was the day I said goodbye to that world forever. I threw away everything that tied me to that life, the clothes, the memories, the name they gave me, and I started again. I began sharing my story, not because I wanted sympathy, but because I wanted others to know there's a way out. I've met women who told me they feel trapped, like there's no turning back, but I'm living proof that no matter how far you've fallen, mercy can still find you. If you're watching this and your life feels empty, if you think you've gone too far, listen to me. You haven't. There is no darkness deep enough that God's light can't reach. I died once, but grace brought me back. And now, every day I live is a reminder that hell is real, but so is redemption. If He could save me from the fire, He can save you too.